Okay, I'm just gonna check that everything's all kind of good on my end.
Good evening, everybody. If anybody can see. Yeah.
And we are. Yes. What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Cider and Port back for a video. Joining me is Kendon Fahr from TikTok.
Yes, I am TikTok famous, which is the worst kind of famous, apparently. I've got friends from all across the political spectrum, which is nice. I was very happy to be invited. Here I am. Stephen seems like a personable chap. We're going to have a talk for about 2 hours, disagree on everything, but
Probably.
let's exchange some ideas, because why not? What else are we going to do during a lockdown? Carry on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find where I had the. Oh, Math Pig likes your beard. So there, look, see, look, we're off to a good start.
Yes. My sexy chin hedge is all the way forward.
There we go. I was trying to find the list of the fucking topics that I had sent you in the email, and I couldn't find them there for a second. I was slightly panicking because we were already live. Yeah, that's the type of production that you can kind of typically tend to find with me is just... I have a go, but it's mainly just me panicking.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I hadn't even heard of StreamYard until you mentioned it. I thought, StreamYard? What the hell is StreamYard? Don't we just film it directly onto YouTube? Apparently not. So I'm learning all the time, Stephen. I'm learning all the time.
Well, StreamYard is essentially doing that for me. Okay. So I have this linked to my YouTube, and as soon as I press go live on StreamYard, then it's just instantly up on my YouTube. So yeah, it kind of does all the background work for me. So you know, yeah. Okay,
well, you are then. MathPig suggests that you need a producer.
Yeah, look, I mean, MathPig, if you're offering your services, sure. I can't promise that I can pay you, but then again, I'm already subbed to you on Patreon, so maybe
we'll work for Twiglets. Okay, fine. Anyway,
all right, yeah. So, yeah, there was a few things that I kind of had from various TikTok videos of yours. But yeah, oh look, you already like fucking coming prepared and everything. So yeah, it there was a few issues that I had, we'll say, with some disagreements with some points, which is why we're here. So the first one that made me reach out was your position on Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
Just for the benefit of the live audience who maybe hasn't heard your take on Jordan Peterson, if obviously you're not limited to 60 seconds. This isn't TikTok. So if you want to kind of do a more of a broader explanation of your views.
Right. Well, obviously, Jordan Peterson is a Canadian psychologist who was teaching psychology in the University of Toronto when suddenly a bill called C-16 was being pushed through the Canadian government, making the use of certain neo-pronouns for trans people obligatory. You had to use them. At least that was how it was interpreted by Dr. Peterson and others. He became famous because he exploded on the interwebs saying that he would use pronouns if asked to, but he would not be compelled by the government to use certain forms of speech. Again, he has been criticized for this because, of course, that's not actually what C-16 pointed out. But he became famous on the internet as a free speech advocate, which he is, regardless of what he thinks about C-16. He exploded on the internet because suddenly his psychology lectures became filmed. He hired a professional film crew, so they're all up on YouTube. You can go watch them. His book, Maps of Meaning, which is almost impenetrable. I don't recommend it. It's not a beach read, put it that way. Became a big seller. He's released 12 Rules for Life. And he sort of drifted away from free speech advocate to a quasi-conservative, traditionally liberal social commentator. And he talks a lot about men's roles in society, women's roles in society, what would make men and women happy together or apart. He digs deep into religious texts, which I gather is, you're a passionate atheist, so Stephen, so you wouldn't be very happy with that. But he draws on more than 20 years of clinical psychology, because of course he is a practicing therapist. And that's what my take on Jordan Peterson was, that he was fighting against a kind of rabid deconstruction of Western civilization and certain cultural tropes. Not that you can't criticize these things, but that a lot of these traditional forms of modes of being were useful and built Western cultures. And notice that I said there's more than one. And it's not, we don't necessarily need to throw them all away or pretend that all of them are equally valid, that there are some that are better than others, etc., etc. So that's why I actually quite support him, even when I disagree with him. I still follow him, I still trust him, because I think his heart is pure, even if his conclusions are nonsensical or just whimsical. That was my basic position on Jordan Peterson.
Okay, so just sorry, I'm getting somewhat distracted by the side chat. Yeah, P Mars coming in here with the very hot take of racism is bad. So
well, do you know what, P Mars? I'd never considered that, so I'm very pleased. No, thank you. Thank you for opening my eyes. No, I shouldn't say that. I want to encourage this sort of thing.
Yeah, so like it was one of the things that was said in your TikTok that you said, and I may be paraphrasing a little bit, so you can,
go for it.
Yeah, you can interrupt and clarify if I get it blazingly wrong. But you had said something along the lines of that Peterson was fighting for things that the left had either given up on, or that they weren't offering people in the same way as Jordan Peterson and the things that he is advocating for. You said something along the lines of that he wants to change the mind of the individual rather than... and it wasn't for selfish gain or something. Yeah, I'm trying to quote you as much as I can.
I vaguely remember making a comment like that, saying, what was it that I said? The far left leftist ideologies require perpetual victims. There's a kind of oppressor-oppressed matrix that's being used. And one of the big if you watch a lot of his talks, Jordan Peterson talks about victimhood and a victim complex and how you need to sort of transcend that as much as possible. And he gives practical professional advice on how to do so. And it is my personal belief that there are a lot of people, not necessarily you, because obviously I can't accuse you without knowing, getting to hit you to defend yourself. There are a lot of people who I think enjoy or at least take some kind of comfort in a narrative whereby they are constantly persecuted and they're fighting against their persecutor. I think that's what he's challenging a lot of the time. And as I pointed out in my TikTok, the positive feedback to Jordan Peterson has been overwhelming, and it's not just from, I don't know, straight white men. It's been from gay people. It's been from people who are not pink. It's been from foreigners who've never actually met him, but they've watched his YouTube videos, because there's hours of footage of the bugger. It's all over the internet. And it's because I think the problem is that I hate, perhaps I have a pathological hatred of, a victim mentality. I've always hated it, because as a teacher, for those who don't actually know who I am, I'm just some rambling English person. I used to be a high school English teacher, and one of the things that you are trained to do as a teacher is to encourage. So it's like you failed this time, but if you work really hard on these bits, you will do better, you will improve. And I don't see a lot of that on the far left, if I'm being brutally honest. Reading all of the literature, following a lot of leftist YouTubers and things like that, I don't get a sense of a constructive feedback and optimism and things like that. I just don't get that sense. So that's why I respond positively to Dr. Peterson, even when I think he's talking rubbish. So there you go.
Yeah, okay. So suppose kind of like in the interest of... Sorry?
A lot to unpack there, I think.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I mean, in the spirit of, point counterpoint, you've given your opinion on Peterson, so I suppose I should go ahead and give my opinion on. I am not trying to. I wouldn't dream in any way, shape, or form of downplaying his expertise in the field of psychology. For anybody who is, from your background on TikTok, who's after coming over, my educational background is in psychology. So, so like I would look up to his expertise in the field. However, that's where my praise of Jordan Peterson ends and my criticism of him begins. It is in my view that Peterson is a pseudo-intellectual hack who he said on the Joe Rogan podcast that he has found a way of monetizing outrage culture, or the anti-SJW, or the monetizing the right and their reactionary approach to certain things. It was despite, and to the best of my knowledge, Jordan Peterson still maintains his incorrect perception of what Bill C-16 was going to do, despite this being pointed out to him several times, and despite him sitting down and talking to, several people about this issue. I personally think that Jordan Peterson, whereas his his approach, the ideals that he lays out in 12 Rules for Life, I personally have not read the book, but so the channel name is Cider and Port, and that literally came from I always drink cider and my co-host always drinks port. My co-host is my real life best friend for 12 plus years. He has read Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. So my understanding of it is somewhat secondary because it is coming from him. However, what he has said is that it is about improving your environment, or doing the things to kind of better improve your life, so that the situation around you can then improve, right? So you're improving little things to kind of down the line for your overall situation to improve, and then you'll just be better about your life. I don't really kind of see the comparison between the things that Peterson is advocating for and the criticism of the left, because the left, in the policies that they would advocate for, they're kind of about improving everybody's life. I mean, it's not in the sense of you one specific individual, and maybe that's what Peterson is kind of going for. But yeah, that's just kind of where my confusion, I guess, was kind of coming from on that specific issue.
I might be able to address the confusion and sort of clear the way a little bit. The problem is with a lot of left-wing politics now is that it's drifted so far to the left that it's revolutionary rather than reformist. So, I mean, I hear a lot of talk about, ending capitalism, ending this form of democracy, ending corporate culture, ending lots of things like that. They're big, grand gestures. But what Dr. Peterson focuses on is the little things that you can do to improve your lot. And I must admit, I met a lot of people when I was teaching as well, and also as a student. All these people had these big ideas about how they were going to fix society and all the things that we should implement, but they couldn't keep their rooms tidy, and they couldn't budget properly, and there were all the little things that they just hadn't mastered, but they were thinking too broadly. They say that you can't see the wood for the trees, but it appears that they can't see the trees for the wood. They're so busy looking at the bigger picture that all the little details fall apart. And I think that's where a lot of, particularly people of my delicate right-wing sensibility, find it very awkward, is when you talk to revolutionaries who do want to change the world, they don't really quite know how it all functions, all the different parts intermingle and how they all mesh. And so you think, well, okay, you might want to change this bit, but this bit might break as well. And so you've got to stop. That's why the dialogue is important. I think that's ultimately why he has resonated with so many people, because again, the world is too big and it is too complicated, and there are many problems, and the problems seem insurmountable. But he invests people, imbues them with a sense that if they focus on minutiae, that they can certainly conquer their own territory, if you like, and then eventually be able to move out into the world and do greater and better things, if you like. I think that's where it comes from. I don't think it's you mentioned Joe Rogan's podcast. I've seen the podcast, or at least I've watched chunks of it that you've referred to. And yeah, he has found a way to monetize it, but he was taking the piss. I mean, we have to bear in mind that he has sold a book that sold millions of copies for a reason. There's something about it that's resonated with the public. But yeah, because he is right to a certain extent when he says something, and I believe he's sincere in what he says. When he says something, and leftists especially explode on the internet, or it gets into the news or whatever, he makes a ton of money. It's good. Was it the old expression? No publicity is bad publicity.
Bad publicity.
Yeah. So he's found a way to monetize it, but I don't think that makes him a hack. I don't think that makes him a cynical opportunist. I think he genuinely believes in what he's saying, and it just so happens that when leftists explode, he sells another ton of books. So there we go. I mean, I'm more generous, perhaps, in my view of Dr. Peterson. But that's just me, you know.
Yeah, I why I would call him like a hack is because um it kind of seemed, and look, I again, I don't think that Dr. Peterson is a stupid person. I think that he's wrong, but I don't think that he's a stupid person. um and like, anybody can kind of see that it was predominantly those on the right who kind of reacted the most favorably to what propelled Peterson into, infamy, some might call it, fame, others, um, was when he was talking about Bill C-16. And yeah, it was overwhelmingly the right who kind of responded very, very positively to it.
Yeah.
So, when Peterson then kind of goes out and says more things that are kind of more in line with what the right would traditionally think, like there was nothing about Peterson. And look, it may be a little bit unfair. It may be a little bit unfair because Peterson, before this whole thing kind of happened, like, he didn't really kind of delve too much more into his own personal politics. So it is like absolutely possible that he could have always aligned more with the right than with the left in his own personal politics, and he just never spoke about it before. But it kind of seemed to be a little bit coincidental, if I'm to look at it through the most kind of negative possible lens, that as soon as he was propelled into fame, that he started talking about all of these other things that the right positively reacted to, which then garnered him money.
Right. Okay. I think I know. If I may latch on to what you just said and extrapolate,
Sure,
I think
sure.
what you're suggesting is that he was kind of like a centre-right sleeper agent. That he was sort of like pretending to be a liberal-minded soul, but as soon as he gained a platform and became an international star, he revealed a more conservative worldview. Is that a fair summary? Do you think? Or
yeah, it would. Like, I would only kind of say that, like, we can't know what Pearson's personal politics were because he just didn't talk about them, and that's perfectly fair enough. He doesn't have to talk about them. So yeah, it would just kind of seem like a little bit of a coincidence that the two kind of overlapped in that way.
Well, no, I mean, I understand where you're coming from on that one, because he has obviously given public speeches. I don't know, because I've watched it, like where it's like 21st century, what conservatives can offer 21st century youth and things like that. Because as he points out, he's described himself in like the Oxford Student Union as the only conservative psychologist in the world and things like that. I think, though, what you've addressed, what you've highlighted really is a shift in Western cultural political debate. Because if you actually look at a lot of my personal politics, and obviously you don't know every position I've got because I haven't made a particular video about it, a lot of my positions are what Americans would call liberal. I'm centre left in a lot of my respects in terms of like social politics. Like gay marriage, I was okay with. Gay adoption, I'm okay with that. Trans people changing pronouns, I'm okay with that. So a lot of these are very liberal ideas. But on the left, especially in the UK, I can't speak for the US with authority because I don't live there. There isn't a space for, I don't think, a liberal worldview. I think what's happening is an authoritarian style of politics has entered the left, in at least in the England, presumably in Ireland as well. And so a lot of people who are, like me, liberal-minded in many respects, who want diversity of opinion, who don't believe that an opinion we necessarily disagree with is an existential threat to the body politic, there's not a lot of breathing room for us. I mean, I've said this to people because I'm one of those people who's drifted from the left to the right relatively recently. I have more fun disagreeing with right-wingers than I do agreeing with some lefties, because you get the sense with a lot of left-wing people I've spoken to, you've been quite fair and generous. I'm not including you in this, but a lot of left-wingers, they're waiting to catch you out. It's like, these are the diktats that we have. These are the positions and the principles we have. And if you miss one of them, you're binned, or they stop talking to you. You're not invited anywhere. They try to shame you. That's happened a couple of times with me, in like socially and online, especially online, though. I'm sure you understand that as well as I do. And so it's such a toxic, dictatorial, censorious environment that a lot of kind of centre right, kind of centre left people like me have gone, you know what, screw the lot of you, and we're just going to drift to the other side of the aisle. And that's why, lest we forget that it was a Conservative Party in the UK that passed the gay marriage law and things like that. So in actual fact, it's adopting a lot of liberal policy because it's drawing people from that kind of political field. Again, maybe I'm waffling about rubbish. Feel free to chip in. But there you go.
Yeah, the only the only kind of thing that I would kind of say, so like you had said that, that the left, they will kind of
Stephen?
No, not at all, not at all. The only thing that I would kind of say is that you had mentioned this like list of things. Are you still there? Because your video is frozen. At least on my. Sorry, no, you're.
Yeah,
good.
no. Yeah. There's an occasional lag. So if I look confused, it's because you've disappeared.
You had kind of said that there was this list of things that you had to kind of hit, and if you didn't hit one of them, that the left would kind of bin you. I mean, like, could you kind of elaborate on that point a little bit more? Like, what would be kind of, on that list, or like what would like you maybe not hit, or what would some other people not hit that the left has then abandoned?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I mean, it depends on the issue, because some of it's social, some of it's political, some of it's financial.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, if you suggest that the history of the Western world is the history of class struggle, that's one that I've had binned. The idea that the racial hierarchy is a big one. The idea of white supremacy. If you don't believe that white supremacy rules the Western world in quite the way that the leftists describe, then that gets you binned, certainly, especially around the time of people like the death of George Floyd, which I no doubt will come up at some point in these 2 hours. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful ideas that the left is pumping out that either I find really uncomfortable, or I just don't agree with, or I would like someone to expand upon. And when you question these things, they are shut down. Your one is shut down because you're not allowed to question these things. And I find that really kind of scary, if I'm being honest. I mean, as I say to people, I'm not necessarily right. I'm just wrong with experience. So I've got all these positions on all these different issues, and every time I put out a TikTok video or a comment on Facebook or something, I expect people to come back at me and say, yeah, you say X, but have you considered Y? That's the kind of thing I want. I'm not here to just to sort of plug a worldview and become the supreme leader of my own little TikTok right-wing fiefdom. That's not what I'm about. But that's how one is treated if you do disagree with the prevailing narrative. So for example, I don't believe that white supremacy is the ruling principle, that is a set of ruling principles of the Western world, for example. I don't believe that police brutality is it's a problem, but it's not the greatest threat to Black Americans, for example. Maybe, again, am I wrong? Maybe, but whatever. Come at me with something. That's fine, but you can't disagree publicly. And so a lot of us sort of get together and go, yeah, but are we sure about this? I don't know. And then we go and find people who at least listen to us. And this is why a lot of, have you not wondered why, maybe you know something I don't about this. Have you not wondered why right-wing politics is like sprouting up all over the Western world, all over Europe, including Britain, West Europe, North America, not so much in Canada, bless them. But they're too far gone. It doesn't matter about them. But it's yeah. So I've got Tusk in the corner. It says, and there you go again. If anybody disagrees with you, they're also a bleeding heart lefty. I never said bleeding heart lefty at all. But a lot of this stuff is born of Marxist rhetoric. A lot of it, the idea of oppressor versus oppressed, is a neo-Marxist paradigm. So a lot of these theories, and I don't come to this as a complete ignoramus. I've read things like by Angela Y. Davis, Patricia Hill Collins, Bell Hooks. Who else can I pick on? I suppose Jermaine Greer back in the day was playing with a lot of this stuff. So yeah, it's not. I hate this kind of oppressor versus oppressed, black versus white, goodies versus black baddies binary. It's a binary, and I just or what would you say, a dialectic, I guess. And I just don't buy it. And am I allowed to? Am I allowed to disagree with it? depends on who you talk to. But there we go.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I hadn't really heard like much of the thing that like white supremacy specifically is kind of like ruling the Western world or like something to that effect. Like, yeah, I've never actually like I've never heard that particular talking point.
Have
It's not
you?
this like
Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
it's not necessarily something that I would like automatically agree with. I would kind of have to hear like the arguments that they're making. It's just I genuinely haven't heard that one. You had said the police brutality was not like the thing that is like the most detrimental to black people. I mean, it's it's either tied with first or it's tied with second. I mean, at least in the United States.
No, I think police brutality is one of those issues. Police brutality that is, it does affect obviously anybody who's brutalized by a police officer. Let's face it. Let's make this personal. You're an Irishman, so you've been, people in Ireland have been brutalized by state authorities, not necessarily your own. So I kind of, but it's not the thing that really is causing such problems in black communities in America as much as people make it out to be. There is poor academic attainment, there is, or lower academic attainment, there is father absence, there is economic deficiency, various kinds of not earning enough money. America doesn't have a really robust welfare state like Britain does, for example. So a lot of the welfare is quite cheap. Those are things I think that are much more important to get right than police brutality. I mean, there is a history. Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there is no police brutality, and I'm not saying that there isn't a history of it. We've all seen the black and white photographs of men in peat caps with truncheons. Let's not pretend that didn't happen for the sake of a talking point. But father absence is a massive thing. And again, Jefferson's Spatchcock has come in with the father absence is a myth. I can assure you that it isn't. I can assure you that it isn't, and it's not a race thing either. It's not only black fathers are a problem. It's everything. It affects white communities as well, pink communities. I don't like the distinction of black and white, but that's a different conversation. I do believe the traditional stable family structure is much more important to a child's development than we would give it credit. We would perhaps give it credit. Again, when I was a teacher, I used to look into this. One of the things, here's something that we will agree on. I'm convinced that we're going to agree on this. Drifting away from black and white, right? Do you remember all the resistance to gay marriage way back in the early 21st century? Do you remember all of that? When people said, "Oh, it's not normal. It's a child needs a man and a father and a mother in the home and all that stuff."
Yeah.
What the social conservatives got wrong is that it's not man and woman that the kids are looking for. It's the stability that a two-parent family provides. So there's no data to defend the assertion that a same-sex two-parent family fares worse than a heterosexual couple raising children. There's no data to suggest that at all. So we know that single-parent families, regardless of what the single parent is, whether it's black person, white person, male or female, they don't fare as well as a two-parent family. We've got more than enough data on that, and as a teacher, I've seen the results. I've seen the results of kids raised by single parents who, it's not like the kids are delinquents. It's not like they're climbing the walls and robbing cars or anything, but they do suffer because of the lack of stability. There's only one income. There's all sorts of weird, and all these little effects can have add up to a great big result. So, yeah, and unpack that one if you want.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of annoying, but I mean, yeah, like the data does tell us that kids who were raised in a two-parent household like do tend to kind of fare better than people who were raised in a single-parent household. But I mean, it's not even necessarily that I disagree with the data or anything else like that. It's just kind of like, I know an awful lot of people who were raised by single parents. I was raised by a single parent, and look at would it have been easier financially if there was like two parents? I mean, yeah, sure, but that's kind of like a little bit of like an obvious one. If there's two parents and like even if one isn't working, there's still a little bit of extra income, like because of the of the social welfare and everything else like that. But it's just, I just don't really kind of think that, the like be all and end all of like some of the biggest problems that are affecting the African American community in the States is because of single parents. Like there's if you want to kind of go into this topic a little bit kind of like more and kind of like properly unpack it, then we can. That's totally fine. It's just, yeah, I'll just kind of leave that up to you and leave you to
Well, I mean,
respond.
I don't care if it. I recognise first and foremost that not. I mean, there are people in the chats who've come back with this. Not every child of a single parent family becomes an uneducated delinquent. I mean, that's obvious. If that were true, then our prisons would be rammed. People would be sleeping in every cell would be filled with bunk beds. Right? We wouldn't be able to stop. That's clearly not the case. But there is a direct correlation between an unstable family life. So if a single mother can do it on her own, great. But if she can't, then there is a direct correlation between, or not single mother, but single parent. Let's keep it gender neutral. There's a direct correlation between an unstable, insecure family life, poor academic attainment, and lower gains in the outside world. There is a direct correlation. It's not a universal truth. And I'm not suggesting that, parents should stick together if the marriage has collapsed or if one partner is abusive or anything like that, because that would just be ridiculous. But there is a correlation between unstable home life, poor academic attainment, lower achievement in the outside world. We know that. There is data on it. And it's not just rated because if it's true. Look, in the UK, I mean, I don't know if it's true, I assume it's true in Ireland. You've got plenty of kids who are pink, who are not ethnic minorities, who also come from really troubled, broken backgrounds, who are also not achieving and not doing anything. So we've got it's not a color thing at all, which is why some people on the far right drive me absolutely mad, because they focus on that. And it's like, no, you're abusing the data. You're not using the data properly. You're using it to advance a narrative that makes me deeply, deeply, deeply uncomfortable. So stop it. That's just me. So, I mean, talking about, what do I know about being black in America? Let's be honest. All I know is what I've read. And it wouldn't be fair, I don't think, for me to comment, because I would be not just an outsider, but a far outsider. I've got no way into that. I've read books by people like Thomas Sowell, Shelby Steele, Candace Owens, even, Larry Elder. I've watched a few bits on him, because obviously these are black conservative people. But again, I have no intimate knowledge of it. So all I would be doing is regurgitating their talking points, and that might not necessarily be fair,
Yeah, I mean, so arguing against like someone else's talking points, like, look, I tend to kind of do that like a lot anyway, because like if I'm having an argument with someone on the internet and it's in like a text form, it's not in like this format. Like you can so obviously read that it's somebody else's talking point and it's not actually their opinion, if you get what I'm saying.
I read it in a book once. Yeah, that's not.
Yeah,
it's not earned knowledge. That's the thing, is it? It's
exactly.
Not earned.
I would just kind of say though, like there's certain things, like there's I mean so. Oh God, I just kind of feel like I have to answer this point, which is one of the bigger, like the biggest things that is facing the African American people in the States. It would be the police, but that's only because they're part of the justice system. I think that the justice system is doing such an injustice towards African American people in the States, because I mean we have data on this as well. I mean, we know that we know that black people and white people in the States will smoke marijuana at similar rates, and yet black people are arrested for it. I think it's like 4 times as much as white people are. There's the cases of the exact same crimes, and yet black people getting harsher sentences than white people, again, for the exact same crime, with the same amount of priors and with the same amount of, like, all of those things. Those were, like, those, you know, extras were all kind of accounted for. It just seems really strange to me. Not even that I'm accusing you of downplaying the severity, but that other people definitely do downplay the severity of how black people are treated in the United States.
Yeah, but what's worth noting is that a lot of the people that, I mean, the people I've just quoted, Thomas Sowell, Larry Elder, Candace Owens, Clarence Thomas, did I say Shelby Steele? Might have done.
Yeah.
They're all black Americans. They're all African Americans. There is... well, as Nate Hammer has just pointed out, it isn't because of race, it is because of class and availability of good lawyers. So there is also the danger that it is a class thing as well as race thing. I mean, look, I'm not going to say that America doesn't have any problems with racial tension, because that would be patently ridiculous. I've heard things from Americans around a dinner table that I thought, if you said that in the UK, you'd be sacked, or, you'd be banned on various platforms. No. And so I know and I'm not saying that Britain is perfect in this. I mean, probably better than I would what it's like to, all the rest of it. But there are other factors involved. Like, the other thing I've mentioned in one of my TikTok videos is the use of percentages to justify a lot of this stuff. I've read, things like, if you have a smaller population and there's a significant change to a smaller population group, it has a disproportionately larger impact in terms of percentages. So 1 in 3 is 33%, but 1 in 10 is 10%. So if you're dealing with like a sort of a white majority population, say, the United States is a good example because we're using that. Most prisoners in the United States are pink. They're not African American, not of an ethnic minority group, but because the ethnic minorities are overrepresented, because there's fewer of them to begin with, again, it's the sort, without actually bringing numbers in front of me, I can't illustrate my point. So perhaps I should abandon it. But it's but there's a kind of, I think that a lot of cases, and I'm not accusing you of doing this before that comes out, a lot of times when they use percentages and stats and things like that, I think they not manipulate them, but use them to sell a point that isn't necessarily reflected by numbers. So that's just it. That's just my that's my take on the thing.
Yeah. You didn't really kind of give me like that much to respond to, and I understand exactly why you did, because you don't have the data. Like,
if I had an example of, like, I don't know, knife crime in Detroit or something like that I could just bring out, then I would have done. But as I don't have that, it wouldn't be fair. I'm not going to say that you're wrong, but I can't prove that you're wrong, and I can't prove that I'm right. So it's almost like it's a bit. I'm just speaking empty words right now. I need something hard to latch on to and just illustrate my point, but I can't illustrate it, so it's a complete waste of my time. That's just me. So I think it's probably best we abandon that, purely because I've run out of things to say on it, and I don't have anything to support any deeper. I'm not saying we have to run away from it, but I'm repeating myself if we focus on this topic.
That's fine. If there's some points that is just going to be stated over and over again, I don't really think that's going to be the most productive conversation. So we're probably best just abandon that particular topic. So I mean, like, I kind of feel like it's sort of okay. So in the way that I kind of set this up, and you will kind of know this obviously because in the emails and everything, I kind of had it set it up as like, you'll kind of know what I'm saying about this, but like sort of like an interview / kind of conversation, because I kind of said, that these were going to be the topics and stuff like that. I mean, did you have anything to kind of like ask me specifically to do with my politics? Just to kind of
I mean, I'm happy to ask.
Maybe
I'm happy to ask questions. I mean, well, the first thing I would ask is that obviously, you're an Irish lad, born and raised down in the Republic. We've established that already. Were you always left wing? Have you always been? Would you consider left of centre? Have you always been like liberal or socialist or an anarchist or?
I'll actually answer that, but just give me just 2 moments, because I'm actually just going to switch over to my phone because I desperately need to use the toilet. Probably should have done that before the stream started, but there we go. Give me 2 moments. if my phone would work a little bit quicker now, that would just be fantastic. There we go.
Stephen's phone
Which fucking earphones am I using? There we go. Just 2 moments, Kimmy. Sorry. Why can I not hear you?
I thought I had a loud, booming voice.
I cannot hear you. That's unfortunate.
It is rather.
Fuck. Oh, dear God, no, not in fucking broadcast. Jesus Christ.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to disappear, I can entertain the crowd for a little bit, do my jazz hands or something, and do my range of third-rate impressions.
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind, literally for 60 seconds is all it's going to take me. Very, very, very sorry about that. I had a backup plan. It obviously fell through, so very sorry about that.
Hello, everybody. Is there any topic of conversation that you want Stephen to bring up in this? Feel free to drop it in the comments, I guess. Taking us to the toilet midstream. Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, no, to be honest, at least he came up with a backup plan. He's going to talk to me while having a slash. So, at least he was conscious of the fact that we've only got so much time to spend. But yeah, so is there any... Hello, Math Pig. It's nice to meet you too, even if it's only just like a text. What is your political bent? Are you left or right? Are you socialist, moderate conservative type, or... I'm just a waffling English twit, to be honest. He found me on TikTok and invited me to one of these sort of chats, and so this is the first time we're doing it. Yeah. I should steal you for my Thursday open mic nights. Is that a compliment or a slur? I don't know. I mean, to be honest, either way, I don't really mind. But Math Pig, you're complicated, are you? Okay. And hello, Nate Hamar as well. Yeah.
Deepest apologies.
Don't worry. I mean, I'm an old man now, so I might have to disappear in about half an hour as well. So I can't really judge you because I'll be doing something similar, no doubt. When you've drunk a mug of tea and half a glass of juice, you know, at the age of 35, I don't have an iron bladder anymore. So it's like,
oh God! Well, yes. Sorry, you had asked me about my past politics. Like, was I always socialist?
Have you always been a mad lefty revolutionary, Stephen? That's really the question. I mean, I'm not saying mad. No, I shouldn't say mad. That's not.
No, I actually haven't. I used to be much closer to the center. So there was a couple of years ago where I was mad enough to think that trickle down economics actually worked and argued on behalf of it. Look, we've all done embarrassing things in our past.
No, but, I'm not going to judge you, Stephen. It's fine. It's fine. In fact, when it comes to money, we might actually agree a lot more than you think. But that's for us to find out. Anyway, so you used to argue trickle down economics, but then what happened? You recovered?
Well, yeah, sort of. Yeah, I kind of got into. I mean, we kind of mentioned this term off air, but kind of got into the whole like bread tube universe, and like started listening to left-wing YouTubers and personalities and all these sorts of things. Like, so, oh God, who were some of them? God, isn't it fucking awful when that happened? Yeah, you started off with David Pacman, went into Kyle Kalinske, Sam Cedar, TYT. I think we all kind of got in there eventually after we got into, like there's it's only a certain amount of time after you discover the likes of people who are kind of like associated with TYT that you stumble onto there. So I used to be a fan of Jimmy Dore before he became completely fucking insane.
I know of Jimmy Dore. I think I've watched like 2 minutes of a clip by him, but is he some species of mental? Is he, is he like the left-wing Alex Jones or something like that?
I mean, kind of almost. That's kind of the road that he's going down because, so he criticized AOC for not forcing the vote on Medicare for all.
Yeah. The topic that I just about kind of sort of understand. Yes, I tried to do some research, and I went, there's peculiarities here that I don't quite fathom. So it's probably
I won't delve too much into it, but like, you know, so he massively criticized AOC for that. But when he had Tulsi Gabbard on his show, when she disavowed and said that she was not in favor of Medicare for all, like he completely like defended her and stuff like that. So there's this weird kind of inconsistency. So you hate AOC because she didn't do exactly what you wanted her to do in that moment, which is get healthcare to people. Understandable during a global pandemic, but at the same time, you don't criticize Tulsi for backing off. It's just kind of really, really weird.
It's not so much that you would necessarily want to agree with him, is that you want to know what you're disagreeing or agreeing to. And I like to think I'm consistent, at least in my viewpoint. But yeah, that sounds like he's almost like a split political personality. It's like he doesn't quite know where he is.
Yeah, sort of. So I used to watch Jimmy Dore. Who I watch the most now is Secular Talk or Kyle and Vosh. I don't know if you've ever heard of the.
I know Secular Talk. Vosh kind of scares me a little bit, if I'm being honest. I don't know the man, obviously, because I don't know him personally, but he has an intimidating stare, and he does say things that I think, okay, would he describe himself as a communist? Is that a fair analysis? Or is there another label for him?
No, so Vosh describes himself as a socialist and an anarchist. He uses the whole kind of thing of like comrade and commie is like for the memes type of thing. You know what I mean?
People are going to call it anyway, so he might as well use it. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, like there are people who would call Joe Biden a socialist and a communist. So, like, I think those words have kind of.
They're mad.
Yeah, I think those words.
Joe Biden is more right wing than I am, and I'm a bloody Tory. So the idea that man's a socialist is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's completely insane.
So I swear people just learn these labels and just throw them around, and then they wonder why people don't take them seriously anymore. It's because you've abused them to the point. Nobody knows what that means. It's like the word fascist. I mean, there are fascists in the world. I know because I've met them, and they're horrible people. But the white people, white middle class people you disagree with on Twitter are not neo-Nazis necessarily. That's not how it works. But I don't know. Nah.
Yeah, so it was just kind of going to, and it took a little while. I mean, I was a social democrat for years. Like when I kind of got into, when I started talking about politics, so like, let's say mid to late 2017 up until kind of the start of this year, actually. Not start of this year. Sorry, I'm not fully into 2021 yet. That's the effects of lockdown. Time just doesn't have any sort of conception with me anymore. I don't know. Midway through 2020 is when I kind of, so I was kind of, look, I was basically almost there anyway. Like, I think that healthcare should be given to everybody. I think that like free access to college at the point of use should be a thing. Like there's the basic kind of like Bernie Sanders platform. That's the kind of, best way of kind of like summing it up.
Yep.
But then like, as soon as I was kind of met with or presented with the data that worker co-ops are like, they're a thing and they're largely successful and they're, like brilliant and everything else like that. That's kind of when I was like, I don't really know if I can call myself a social democrat anymore because I'm in favor of the, and that's not necessarily, that's something that a social democrat wouldn't really kind of, tend to be in favor of. So it was kind of, as soon as I adopted that, I was like, well, I guess I'm a socialist now. So
yeah, well, I must admit, I mean, we could talk about those points if you like, because you've mentioned three things. You mentioned workers' co-ops, Medicare for all, and what was that, free college tuition or free higher education. Let's make it more general. I mean, those are three talking points. Like, for example, I don't agree that university education should be free. But I also don't believe that you should be gouging students with ridiculous student debt, because that's something that I've noticed with the American model. The American model, as far as I can see, is a racket. It's an absolute racket. And it's like, for example, here's the difference between the United States and the UK, that I know this because I have a friend who will remain nameless, but she lives on the Eastern Seaboard. And I've known her now for, going on 16 years, right? I've known this for a long time. And obviously she went through the American college system, but I knew her because she came over as an exchange student in the UK. And her student debt is ridiculous. Her student debt is like 5 or 6 times mine. Also, when you sign your student loan agreements, they're grandfathered in. So if they change the rules for repayment, for example, you are affected by those changes, even though you went to college years earlier. You can go bankrupt with student debt, which you can't get bankrupt in the UK. So, I don't believe it. So obviously, too much capitalism is a problem, because if you're not considering the customer, you're not considering the client base. However, the problem with free university tuition is that it makes degrees worthless. Ultimately, my degree. Say you're, because if everybody's got a degree, the value of the degree decreases, because it's scarcity that breeds value. So I'll give you an example. It's an example of, if you want, academic inflation. There was a time when you could leave school with no GCSEs or O levels in the UK, but those kids with O levels were slightly better applicants. If you had A levels, you were an even better applicant. And if you had a degree, remember, there was a time in the UK, maybe not, I don't know about Ireland, but certainly in England, where only 2% of the school population went to university. So you could write BA Hons after your name because you were a Bachelor of the Arts. If you did that now, you'd look like a fool, because if I remember rightly, is it 33% of school leavers now have a degree? Well, that doesn't make them more employable. In fact, because there's nothing remarkable about it. So there ought to be some kind of, I don't believe in the universalization, shall we say, of university education. I think there should be alternatives. I think that it shouldn't become a public debt that you want to go to university. I think if you, Stephen, want a degree in psychology, you can pay for it with the promise that you'll pay it back from your salary when you become a professional psychologist. That, I think, is a more reasonable model. It's not one thing or the other. And you've disappeared. Hello, Stephen?
Yeah, I can still hear you. Yeah, I can still hear you. Can you hear me? I think on the stream's end, they can hear both of us. Oh God, if this kind of sorts itself out now. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Stephen, are you there, sir?
Yeah, I am here. Yeah. Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Stephen.
You able to hear me? What the fuck is going on? Oh shit. What's after happening there? Because after you unfroze, you're normally able to hear me. Are you not able to see me at all? Hear me, see me, anything? Chat, are you able to hear me? Okay, chat can hear both of us. I'm just going to refresh the fucking thing. I'm just going to refresh this and... Oh.
Are we back?
Yeah, we're back.
Yes!
We're back.
Success! We are invincible. All of our guests have disappeared. Have they? No, they're still there. Ha! Marvelous.
Yeah.
Marvelous.
I wasn't sure whether that was myself or you, to be totally honest.
I don't know. It might actually be me. So if it is, I apologize. But I'm in the back of a house, so I'm not too far away from the router, but far enough that it could be a problem. My final right wing talking point before I disappeared into the void was I don't think that university tuition should be free, but I also don't believe in gouging students of their money. And I explained it. Hopefully, what's your take on that? I mean, do you want to jump in?
I mean, yeah, look, obviously I don't think that college is for absolutely everybody. I don't think that people should be forced to go to college in order to make a decent wage. That's something that you did a TikTok on that I have so many disagreements with. We'll get into those in a little bit. It was on the $15 minimum wage.
No.
Definitely. We're definitely going to get into that.
Fantastic.
So, if somebody wants to go to a trade school, or if they want to do any of those, I'm not opposed to any of those things. Absolutely none of them. None. I just personally think that, you know, if you want to go to college, but your socioeconomic conditions are stopping you from otherwise going to college, I think that that's a little bit of a problem. Now, maybe that can be, you know, addressed as, you know, perhaps the kind of middle ground between my position and the people who are advocating literally against my position, which I don't actually think that you're like necessarily doing. I think that yours would be the kind of the middle ground between the people who are advocating for my point of view and who are staunchly against mine, which is just to lower the college tuition. I'm happy with that as a compromise, as a middle ground, as a whatever other flowery thing you want to put on it. So yeah, so like that's kind of where I'm at. I just yeah, that's just kind of it. I think that if you want to go to college, that how much money you make or how much money your like family has or you have at your disposal shouldn't be a barrier to getting into college, because
well, in this regard, actually, Stephen, we agree. I don't think that poor children should be denied university because their parents are broke. That's not a reasonable. Because put it this way, if you've got a kid on a council estate who's bright enough to become a neurosurgeon, it benefits everybody that they go to medical school to become a neurosurgeon, because they earn serious coin, they pay more tax, and they've got a medical skill set society benefits from. So there's no logic in just keeping the chav in a box and pretending he's not there. But I believe in private over public debt. So if it should cost money to go to university because you have to pay the teachers, you've got to pay for maintenance, you've got to pay all these sorts of things. So student loans and tuition, maintenance loans and tuition fee loans, I'm totally in favor of. I just don't believe that they should be stupidly large. Well, I mean, why does it cost $20,000 a year to get an English degree from some university in the Midwest in America? Why? What are you paying for? They did a numbers breakdown. You know, Harvard University, which is obviously one of the most prestigious colleges in the world, they worked out that it's worth $19 billion because it's obviously a major franchise. It sells its own merchandise and everything. It could afford to pay everyone's tuition fee for like a full year and still have tens of billions of dollars at its disposal. It's ridiculous the amount of money it's got. So yeah, the idea that you're paying your college tuition purely because it should be run basically like a business, but like all things in business, it doesn't mean that you have to screw the customer. You don't need to go that far. So yeah, by all means, poor kids should go to college, but there should be tuition fees. They should be reasonably priced, and if they need to borrow the money, they can do so, like we do in the UK now. We've got the student loan company that lends to students, and our fees, although they have increased recently, are not ridiculously high, not really. And also, if you don't earn above a certain amount of money, you don't pay back your student loan anyway. So, and it's factored in. Your repayments plan is factored into your actual income, so you're not forced to live on the street because you got that degree in English 10 years ago, which I think is a perfectly reasonable way of doing things. I don't like the word free. That's my problem. I don't like free because if you're
look, it's one of those things that it's one of those things that Bernie was kind of, you know, advocating for during his run, or you know, it was one of the things that like kind of like came up quite a lot of like, oh well, you know, well who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for it? We've all heard that, like, you know, memed language, I guess, of like, you know, and. I mean, like, even Bernie will kind of say himself that, like, you know, even though, like, yeah, he's calling it free, look, it's obviously getting paid, you know, for somehow, right? And it's just kind of how that is, you know, how that is paid for, that kind of matters. But I mean, a lot of the things that Bernie was kind of advocating for, Americans used to have. Like, it used to cost, like, I said this quote in the, I don't know if you actually watched it or not. I did a debate on MDD recently on socialism versus capitalism.
I saw a bit of this. This was you with Leo Filius and two American chaps, CJ and the other one, and it was cap versus sock and all the rest. Yeah, no, I saw a bit of that. I didn't watch all of it, but no, I saw some of it.
Yeah, so like what I said in my opening there was that it used to cost like 45 cents in a packet of Pop-Tarts to go to college in California, and now it costs like $60,000 plus for a degree. Like, why? Why does it cost so much? The education necessary, like, depending on the course, on the degree that you're doing, it like, has it changed that much that they can justify such an insane? No, it hasn't. It's kind of.
This is where we agree. It's a
grift.
It's a grift. It's a bloody cartel. That's all it is. I mean, look, I might be in favor of capitalism, but not. Oh, he's disappeared.
I haven't disappeared. I've just turned my camera off because I want to take my hoodie off because I'm on fire.
Fair enough. I thought, oh Christ, not another technical error.
No, we're all good. It's just nobody needs to see me if my t-shirt rides up on the screen.
Nobody wants to see your naughty nipply bits. No,
that would not be a pleasant experience for anybody. Yeah, it's kind of funny that we're talking about him and I literally have him on my t-shirt. By the way, there we go.
Yes, I never felt the burn. Bless him. I like Uncle Bernie. He just hasn't got the dosage right, has he? Bless him.
Yeah, I kind of prefer the kind of nickname for Bernie as America's dad, because I think that's just that's just what he was,
isn't he? He's like, no, he's got all these cute ideas about how the world should work. Never going to happen, but it's like, let him live in his little world. It's fine. He's not hurting anybody. Bless him.
So
socialists, they're just cuddly, really. No. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I believe in free markets, but I'm not so foolish. I mean, he's just.
Okay, we're roboting just a little bit, although the last time... Oh, I don't know if you can hear me. The last time that this happened, though, chat could hear both of us, so...
Hey, hello? Oh, you there? Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, we're back. Yeah. We're back in the room. Marvelous.
I was just going to say, the last time that this happened, and I probably should have said this the very last time, is that chat can still hear both of us, even though we can't hear each other, which is a little bit frustrating, but,
and a little bit,
at least chat can still hear us.
Yeah. It's a little bit scary as well.
A little bit.
Is this a hot mic? Good. My plan is, so no. But yeah, the thing is I believe in free markets. I know that you don't, and I've seen your arguments against it, and you're in favour of workers' co-ops. I'm not necessarily, but even let's put it this way: I work in finance. I'm a professional who works in finance, and I know the kind of creatures that get into finance departments and positions of authority, and any power structure of any kind attracts narcissists, egomaniacs, and psychopaths, and there needs to be checks and balances. You need to make sure that these people aren't running amok, and that doesn't mean crush the market. It just means keep an eye on it. So clearly, when you're talking about university tuition, an English degree, even from the best university in the country, is not worth the $60,000-$70,000 you pay for it. As someone with an English degree from Hull, which is not not an illustrious university, I know that my degree isn't practically worth anything. It certainly wouldn't be worth the equivalent in pounds sterling. So, you and I agree on that one. It's definitely far too expensive to be educated in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not necessarily opposed to free markets. I actually think that I'm the real kind of moderate on this issue, because I think that sometimes the answer is the free market, and sometimes, the answer is government. I mean, government is not inherently evil either. Government has done quite a lot of good things. So, I can't think of any kind of values to kind of plug in where they ought be plugged in at the moment. But yeah, I think that some issue some issues in our society can be solved through the free market. But if they can't be, then I mean, who else? You are either relying on the charitability of the corporations, which I don't think anyone is ignorant to the fact of it doesn't really work out very well, or you have the government to kind of fall back on. So I kind of I
mean, with the profit motive is not the only motive. That's what I would add to that. It's not I believe, I mean, I've got a little bit of insight into this because I've been to Your friend Leo Filius wouldn't agree with this at all, but I've been to socialist countries or post-socialist countries. He was making the argument that, you know, socialism has never been tried. It's always been statism, which I don't agree with at all. But I've been to what are called post-socialist or post-communist countries like Poland, the Czech Republic, Romania, Russia, Vietnam. And that they are clearly they are not as well developed as Western European countries or say North America is, because the market was never free. So you do need some kind of regulation, but what I don't believe is state stifling. I'm not interested in that at all. State fixing prices, protectionist tariffs, all this garbage. It doesn't work. It's not that necessarily it doesn't work, but it's detrimental to the evolution of an economy, of the evolution of a culture even. So yeah, sometimes profit motive is the only motive you need to worry about, but we don't run our military for profit. We don't run emergency services for profit. We don't have for-profit schools in the UK as much as we might do. You know,
I was just going to say, I'm kind of hoping that you're going to finish that up by saying in the UK, because the military in the United States, that's definitely running out of fucking profit. So I was really, really, really hoping you were going to finish that up by saying in the UK.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, well, the thing is that, I mean, one of the things I've looked into, because I find the military industrial complex in the United States fascinating. Yeah, have you heard about the aeroplane graveyard in Arizona? Do you know?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
The idea that these are brand new planes that have come off the production line, like bombers and fighters and all sorts, and they just drive them out into the middle of this desert in Arizona and just leave them because the government doesn't want them, but they've got a contract for the next 50 years making planes. And the only reason why they're making these planes is because there's an entire town's economy that's built around this manufacturing plant that's making aircraft or weapons or whatever happens to be, but they've not actually any use for them. They don't. It's surplus. But unlike army surplus in the UK, which tends to be like camo trousers and some black, you know, leather boots, they've got instruments of war, instruments of death that they can't use, that they don't need. And it's almost like a work for jobs program, you know. So it's like the government sponsored. It's a form of socialism, isn't it? No, don't whisper it. So Nate Hammer says actually they keep them for parts. Oh, well, okay, if you say so. I've seen photographs of many aircraft that are brand new that have never properly flown, that are parked in the middle of a sandpit. Maybe it's a foreign distortion. I would accept that, but it does seem a bit ridiculous that you're producing so much stuff that you don't need, and you think someone's making money somewhere. That has to be the reason why they keep it going. But yeah, entire town economies are built around the local gun factory or whatever. And not all of them, of course, but enough. So if you close that gun factory because it loses the government contract, all those people go on welfare or struggle to find work elsewhere. So, you know, yeah, you're right. There is definitely profit being made. I'm just rambling now. Feel free to interject at any point.
It was like just to kind of piggyback on that issue, and then I think we'll kind of like leave it there because there's far too much agreement.
This is not what you wanted.
No, not at all. There's like several kind of stories out there of like planes that have cost like $1 and $2 billion that don't fly. Like they don't actually work as intended, and it's like you've spent $1 billion fucking dollars on prettily arranged metals, because that's all it is at that point. Like if it can't fucking fly and it's a plane, then that's all it's just metal arranged in a certain shape to look nice.
It looks intimidating.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, or to look intimidating or whatever. But like,
well, I must admit, I need to dig into that, because the idea that these planes can't even fly is even more ridiculous. I need to dig into this because this is a fascinating concept for me. The idea that there are all these, you know, that they don't actually work. Just saying hello to the chat. Hello, Brainbug. Marcus Garza has left us. I hope he does well wherever he's gone. But yeah, so what was I going to say? Yeah, so okay, far too much agreement. What should we talk about next? Do you think? Where are we definitely going to fall down on? I mean, we're going to come apart
on. Yeah. So just to kind of sorry, because I'm in the middle of. Give me a second now. Because I don't actually need to share the fucking audio for this. It's a massive fucking issue. It's just there on the screen, Kendon.
Okay.
And it's a lot fucking more than that. It's a $400 billion F-55 that doesn't fly. That's what it looks like. And
is that production cost, or is that also like R&D beforehand?
Oh fuck! I actually don't know. I genuinely don't. I've literally only kind of.
I refuse to believe. Refuse to believe that dinky little bird cost $400 billion, because if it did, someone would be shot for embezzlement. That's no way.
Probably. Probably. To kind of go back onto to bring up a topic that I know that we're not going to have any agreement on whatsoever. It was mentioned very, very briefly a little bit earlier. The $15. Oh, for fuck's sake. Well, again, the chat can hear us. And I keep saying that, but you can't fucking hear me. God. I mean, do I just wait until Kendon comes back? He said he was going over Wi-Fi. I should probably tell him to hardwire if he can at all. Kendon, just try and refresh if you can hear me at all. Is he able to hear? Why do we now have two of you? That's very weird.
No, we've only got one apparently, because I can only see one of myself. I can see one of you, so everything's right. Okay, then we're back in the game, which is good. Yeah. I think this is one thing we're going to disagree on, or we're definitely not going to agree on, is
$15 minimum wage.
Yeah, this
brought it up a little bit earlier.
Oh, blood up the walls time. Come on, I love it.
Yeah. Okay, so
you're the one that's most passionate about this, so I think it's only fair that you get to go first. You explain to me why I'm talking rubbish. Go for it. Go.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily put it in those provocative terms, but look, if you've said it, then I'm fine with it. So yeah, look, I come from the rather radical position where I don't believe that somebody who is working full time shouldn't make enough money to survive. It was something that was said in the TikTok that you did about it, about that, like it's going to like drive up inflation and stuff like that. To see the problem with that line is that the prices for things have already gone up. It's just the wages haven't gone up with them. So inflation and productivity have gone up in the United States, but the minimum wage that was supposed to keep on track with those two things hasn't gone up, to the point where the minimum wage in the 1960s bought you more than it does today in 2021, which, in what is literally the richest country on the face of the earth, I think is just an absolute is a fucking travesty. So, like, had the minimum wage kept up with inflation and productivity, the minimum wage in the United States would be $24.30 an hour, and we're only asking for 15. So, I mean, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of like a concession that we're only asking for 15. I get that, we're only asking for whatever, but it's another talking point. I don't necessarily want to pin this talking point to you because I haven't heard you making it, so to do so would be unfair. But I've heard quite a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, if you bring up the minimum wage to $15 an hour, it's going to, there's like going to be like massive and very, very rampant job losses. There's unemployment is going to go through the roof." Technically, yes and no. There's so much to kind of dig into there. So typically right now, a lot of Americans are working two jobs.
Yeah.
But if one of their jobs is going to give them $15 an hour, well then, there's going to be a little bit of unemployment, but that's because people are going to go from working two jobs down to just working one. There's just one last point and then I'll hand it over to you. Australia has effectively, when you convert the currency, they have effectively a $15 wage, and yet they have the same unemployment rate as America did before COVID. So I kind of like, I just don't really see where that argument is kind of coming from. So
right. Okay, no, well, I'll pick it up because we let's make my position on it a bit clearer. I'm not opposed to minimum wage, and I think the minimum wage should be enough to keep the lights on and fill the fridge. So in that sense, we agree. I think Ben Shapiro's line on this is that minimum wage is an imposition on business, and it's like, well, yeah, it is, but it's a wise imposition. What you're telling the employer is this is the bare minimum that your employees need to earn to keep the lights on, otherwise they're on welfare, which means they're on the public debt, which means that basically you're not doing your job properly. Your job is to pay these people so that they don't have to be on welfare and food stamps and other such bits and pieces.
Yeah,
you are also right that working 2 jobs in America is normal. You know, you have your day job and your night job, or your week job and your weekend job. As Nate Hammer has pointed out, though, and this is where I would pick it up in the chat here, he says, as Europeans, you cannot understand the difference in cost of living between states in the US, and he has got a point. We are talking about, when you talk about Ireland, you're talking about one economy, really. When I talk about England, I'm talking about one economy. Australia is effectively one economy. And as he's beaten me to the punch already, as Nate Hammer. Different countries have different minimum wages because they have different standards of living and different levels of economic development. In Britain or in Ireland, in the Western European countries, tend to think of America as one country, and it isn't. It's 50 countries bolted together in a loose republic, and different states have different levels. So I'm not opposed to minimum wage. I'm not even opposed to increasing it. What I am opposed to is sort of a blanket increase, because a blanket increase ignores little details. It ignores, like, as I point out in my TikTok video, and again, you might have forgotten this or disagree with it, by all means pick it up. $15 goes further in, say, North Dakota or Delaware than it does in, say, Southern California. So if, for example, you came back to me, if the state of California said to whoever's in charge of this and said the minimum wage in California should be $25 an hour, $25, because that's what you need to keep the lights on and fill the fridge, then it would be unreasonable to say, well, you're only getting 20 so hard cheese. That's not a reasonable response. But the idea that everybody across the entire country earns $15 an hour, because one, it might be too much depending on where you are and what level you are, but also it might be not enough, so you actually haven't achieved anything at all. The other thing that I would bear in mind as well is that, because it sounds like, if I'm misrepresenting your position, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you're advocating this because it's like a 2-finger salute to corporate greed. You're fed up with corporate employees being underpaid. You want the more of the profits to go to the workers, which is a noble ambition. This is something that I found with a lot of left-wing commentators on this issue. They think that every single business is a big business. They don't realize that a lot of smaller businesses would get screwed. So, for example, if you're talking about Walmart or Amazon or Microsoft or Apple, they could probably pay $50 an hour and not notice, because they make so much money that they just eat into the profit margin. Okay, it would piss off the shareholders, and that's a different conversation. But they wouldn't stop being massively successful multi-billion-dollar corporations because you've jacked up minimum wage by $10 or whatever. So that's a fair point. But if you are running a small business and you have 2 employees and you have a limited amount of your budget set aside for wages, if you double minimum wage, say, that eats pretty heavily into your margins, and then you either jack up your prices to cover that expenditure, or you fold, which is another option. This is why, for example, you moving slightly away from minimum wage, you remember when the Affordable Care Act, so-called Obamacare, came in to the United States, a lot of smaller businesses had to close, not because in protest, but because they couldn't afford the insurance premiums. Now, that's not every single case. It doesn't invalidate socialized healthcare completely, but that is a knock-on effect. So what actually starts as an anti-capitalist measure or an anti-corporate measure becomes pro-corporate, because only the bigger companies can afford to pay this kind of money, and they're the ones that offer all the jobs. So you end up, as I say, I'm not saying this is a universal truth, but what you might end up doing if you were to do a blanket thing like this is kill a lot of smaller trade, but boost larger companies that can afford to take the hit. So if you start really picking it apart and thinking about it, you might actually do a lot of harm where you didn't mean to. That's where I would pump the brakes on a blanket minimum wage increase.
Yeah. So, okay. So, wow. Yeah. There's a lot. There's a good few
there's
points
a lot.
too.
There is a lot of. I mean, I appreciate that I've just done an info dump, so feel free.
No, you're okay. You're okay. Yeah. So, kind of again, I would be kind of okay with the, maybe you could call it, moderate position. Compromise is kind of more so what I'm leaning towards. If the individual states, so if California said, the minimum amount that you need to meet the cost of living in California is $20 an hour, but in somewhere like Ohio, it said, well, okay, that's fine, but the minimum, that you would need is $12 an hour here. I'm kind of okay with doing it on a state by state basis, kind of figuring out what the minimum cost of live, like what you need to earn minimum per hour, as you said, to keep the lights on and to keep the fridge full. Yeah, I'm kind of fine doing that. So yeah, there was something else that you said. Oh yeah, but the smaller businesses. Yeah, this is where we're going to, because I have a little bit of a hot take here.
Oh, go for it.
Which is, if a smaller business can only make profit by paying people starvation wages, you're very bad at running a business. If the only way that you can keep making profit is to not pay your workers a living wage, that's on you, not on your workers. So if raising their wages is going to potentially like bankrupt or cause them to fold on their business, it might be it might sound a little bit harsh, but it's kind of, if you can't pay your workers enough, then maybe you shouldn't be allowed, or not allowed, but maybe you just shouldn't be in business. And again, I get that that's a hot take, but...
Well, no. Okay, here's my comeback. What if they're not actually making a profit? What if they're breaking even? And this is a big distinction. Not even, I mean, not all small businesses are poor and shambolic and, desperate. But if a smaller business is only, like, for example, a lot of restaurants run at cost. A lot of smaller Uncle Bob's tackle shop might run at cost. In terms of profit, we're not talking about obscene profit margins. It might be that the manager of the business, the owner of the business, uses the business to pay his rent, but he doesn't have like luxuries. He doesn't have a big car. The assumption that the assumption that the business is thriving because the workers are suffering isn't necessarily true. So if you are if you're a startup business, so you've only got like 4 employees and the pet dog, and you've budgeted for a certain amount of money per hour, and now you are legally required to increase wage, not even double it, just add a few more dollars per hour, you might end up screwing startup companies who don't have the capital to take the hit. So yeah, companies like Walmart could shut its doors for a year and open after 365 days and carry on as though nothing had happened. It's got so much capital behind it. It's ridiculous. And even if it's not through selling, they own land. They've got, other investments. They're not just selling tat to the customer. They've got fingers in multiple pies. Tiny mom and pop shops in small towns in the Midwest or wherever, and I'm using that as a generic, common example, they don't have that kind of capital. They don't have that kind of reach. They also don't have that kind of backup plan. You sink a lot of money when starting these things up. So it's not about, okay, if you are running a small business and you are screwing your employees because you want a pool in your backyard, then you'd probably deserve to die. Your business, sorry, apologies, but your business probably deserves to die. But the
Okay, he had started to freeze there, but I could still hear him. I actually can't hear him now. Chat, are you still able to hear him? Someone in chat could just tell me if they're able to still hear Kendon. Oh, there we go. He seems to be back. I think, perhaps, we have a loading screen. Kendon. Oh, there we go. See, look, it's the same.
Yeah, back again.
Yeah, see, I don't know if you can see this right now, just on the screen. Look, there's two of you. There is two.
I've got one face, and then I've got a swirly thing, and now it's disappeared. So yeah, we're back in the room. Yeah, so this is it. I mean, yeah, I'm saying that if your small business is if your small business only survives because you're screwing your workforce out of an honest day's pay, then yeah, if it folds, I don't really care because you shouldn't be in business. But a lot of small businesses aren't run like that. A lot of small are run at cost. And it's very hard, and sometimes they have to take out bank loans just to keep things afloat. So those businesses might suffer if you just jack up. And as I say, I'm not opposed to minimum wage. I'm not opposed to increasing it, but just an arbitrary blanket nationwide increase wouldn't necessarily fly. That's it.
Yeah. So it was only after I had finished that I actually kind of realized that I didn't do the best job kind of articulating my full position. So under the kind of model that I'm in favor of, if you increase the wages to, let's just kind of keep it on like the original thing of $15 an hour. One of the things that I am more than aware would kind of have to happen is that government would probably have to subsidize a lot of small businesses. And I'm totally okay with that. If the government would need to subsidize a business so that it can afford to pay its workers a living wage, then I'm more than okay with that. More than okay with that.
No, you see, this is where my Tory antennae start trembling, because I don't believe that, because I'm not a big fan. This surprises a lot of people. I'm not a big fan of things like corporate bailouts and things like that. I don't believe that corporate bailouts. I think companies should be allowed to fail in a free and open market. If you fail through incompetence, if you fail through incompetence, then it's not the government's job to spend tax money to bail you out. I don't care how large the business is. But what you're proposing is effectively a state-run economy. What you're effectively doing is that because if governments, offering business loans to businesses is one thing because you're going to get the money back. If you're effectively subsidizing, sponsoring businesses, then they're no longer competing on a free and open market because they've always got a kind of revenue stream. So I'm always a bit, I'm not too keen on that one. Not too keen on it. As I say, I'm not saying minimum wage is bad. I'm not saying you can't increase it. I'm not saying that there's disparity between inflation of prices and inflation of wages, but it's got to be managed more carefully it's got to be done delicately. And doing everyone earns $15 an hour. That's going to bite you, or it's going to bite the people that you're paying.
Okay, well, I suppose I can just kind of ask you this then, because I'm not 100% sure of like your kind of like overall solution, I guess. So if we kind of did the compromised position and went to states like Ohio, and they said that it was $12 an hour, if a small business, or because I'm kind of like a fan of round and even numbers, so like let's just say it's 10, right? And the national minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. So if a small business says, we're just about able to pay our workers $7.25 an hour now, and if you raise the federal minimum wage to $10 an hour, then we're not going to be able to pay all of our workers. If you're against the government subsidizing businesses, I mean, are you then just kind of like okay with that business like failing, I guess? Or
no, what a business would have to do if it were responsible is it find the money by increasing prices of goods and services that it offers, or it would have to cancel development plans, or it should be or it would it might even, and this is another problem, it might even have to reduce the number of staff. There might be layoffs. There might be redundancies, which is a thing that can happen. You can't afford to, you were able to hire 3 waiters in your restaurant. Now you can only hire 2 because you don't have the money. Now, the trouble is, in Britain and in Ireland, we've got cast iron employment law, which means that you can't be made redundant from a job that still exists. I'm not sure that that's true in the United States. In fact, from what I gather, employment law in the United States is a little bit more free and a little bit more open to abuse than it is over here. But this is a big problem. So the trouble is that if all you're doing is taking public money and pumping it into private business just to keep it buoyant, it means that they're no longer competing, which means that business ultimately suffers. And it means that, you know, it's if so be it. I mean, some businesses would have to fold, wouldn't they? I mean, there's, you know, if you can't find, what are we talking about in that example that you've given me? $2.75 extra an hour, did you say? Was it $7.50?
Yeah, because it's $7.25 is the federal minimum wage now. So yeah, so if you increase to up to 10. And Kendon is frozen.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. I can hear you. Yes.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Good. Oh, this is right annoying.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for some reason, StreamYard works an awful lot better if you have an Ethernet cable connected into like your laptop or your computer or whatever you're using to
buy one.
I was just going to say, I don't actually know if that's like an option for you like right now, but yeah,
no, it's not.
Just for whatever reason, it seems to work an awful lot more stable, consistent off of Ethernet rather than off of Wi-Fi for some reason. I don't know why.
Right. Well, So if it's only a small increase, then it's highly unlikely that a business wouldn't be able to find the money. If it's, but again, we're also talking about the size of the business. So, what do you mean by small business? I've used Uncle Bob's Tackle Shop or a restaurant. You might only have like 20 employees in a restaurant. You might only have 10 employees in the tackle shop. But if a small business could be a couple of hundred people, or it could be 1,000 people, you know, that could qualify, you know. So it's difficult to gauge. That's why I like details in these things. I want to know, and that's why I say it should be done on a state level rather than. I mean, you could federally mandate that all states have to provide minimum wage to cover the cost. You could do something like that. It would have to trickle down. There's a phrase that we don't like. It would have to trickle down that way. But the idea that, you know, King Joseph of House Biden decrees by executive order that everyone has to earn $15 minimum wage because so saith the monarch. That's not going to work. It's not going to work. There are too many downsides to it. And it works, by the way, in the UK. If you ran in England or probably in Ireland and said, in Ireland, when I come into office, minimum wage is going to be €15 an hour, irrespective of whether you can actually pay it or not. You could see it on a smaller Irish scale. That it wouldn't work either. This is why Jeremy Corbyn's plan of in the UK of arbitrarily increasing minimum wage for the British pound sterling, that didn't fly, because again, it's who's going to pay it, and two, there are too many downsides. It's clumsy. That's my objection to it. It's clumsy, and it creates more problems than it solves.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think we're just going to have to agree to disagree.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Let's move on to something else then. Right? Okay, I've clearly won that. No, that's not true.
Okay. Yeah, there was one thing, and I am acutely aware that we have less than a half an hour left. So
we haven't talked about Trump.
Yeah, that's oh my god! It's like you're a fucking wizard, because that's literally.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned Tangerine Mussolini once.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask.
Good lord! Right, well, I say we leap on it, sir. We ride it. We ride it like a prize bull, and we see what happens.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What's your view on the particularly orange wannabe dictator?
Right. Well, I don't. Okay. He was a remarkable shade of orange. That was indeed true. I think I didn't particularly care for the man. I didn't hate him. I didn't think he was Cinnamon Hitler, as Trevor Noah once memorably described him. I didn't think he was the reincarnation of Stalin or anything like that. I didn't think he wanted to open up death camps, any of that mad nonsense that was pumped out of certain periodicals that I won't name, The Guardian. But it was... No, I don't buy that at all. I did obviously a TikTok video about Trump saying that my thoughts on him were he was overrated and underestimated. Let us not forget that while he is a builder and a New York property tycoon, he is also a reality TV show producer and therefore understands television intimately. And a lot of what he did was showboating. A lot of it was showmanship. He understood what would resonate with American audiences. And he treated, as I say in the TikTok video, if politics is showbiz for ugly people, then it should be treated like a show. And that's what Mr. Trump, President Trump, the Donald, did. He treated it like a massive carnival, and he spoke like a carnival barker. He swore, he did practical jokes, he made negative nicknames for his opponents, a bit like it was like on the set on Big Brother. It was that kind of, and it was he was very, very entertaining. Not a born politician, but again, that was the source of his appeal, that he wasn't a typical professional politician, that he was something fresh and colourful and interesting, not just colourful because he's orange. I do think that a lot of his positions were, I won't say misrepresented, I think manipulated and managed by his detractors who didn't like him. And it was fine to dislike him because he did say and do a lot of things that I disagreed with. Like, for example, do you remember back in 2017, he made that comment about, what was it? He made that comment about Mexicans. Do you remember that one in 2017?
That like they're criminals.
They're rapists and criminals. I suppose some of them are good people. Do you remember that line?
That's actually not a bad Trump impression, but yes, I do.
I know, it's great, and it's huge. Stephen, you're going to be great. You're tremendous. It's absolutely amazing. I ought to do it. I ought to do a video impression of that one.
Sorry, I just want to ask, Chad, can you give Kendon some love for that Trump impression? That's actually very good. Sorry, come on. Credit where it's due and all that. Sorry to
I see Leo Filius has joined us, celebrity. But I watched the CNN clip where that came from, and it said, he said, and I won't do it in Trump's voice, you should see some of the people we're sending back. They're rapists, they're criminals. I suppose some of them are good people. What CNN did for their clip package is they cut off the first line. So he said, they're rapists, they're criminals. I suppose some of them are good people. And it was misrepresented as though Trump was speaking about the entire Mexican nation, which is, of course, not what he was doing. He was being very coarse and vulgar about a tiny subsection of people that he was deporting. It's worth noting that President Obama deported more Mexicans than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So the idea that Trump hated Hispanics was overstated because there's no evidence for it. And it was little things like that. And I think a lot of the anti-Trump rhetoric, it's okay to criticize policies. He wasn't a perfect bloke. He was just a bloke, and he said and did things that I found objectionable. But a lot of his detractors manipulated what he said or did to make him sound even worse than he was. That was my perception of it. And in the course of doing that, they had started attacking a lot of his supporters. Yes, you've got people like Richard Spencer and other assorted ethno scum who voted for Trump, and I don't want to talk about them because they're nasty people, but a lot of ordinary people voted for Trump and they got something out of him in the last 4 years. And I've had Thanksgiving dinner with Trump supporters. I've got Trump supporters following me on my TikTok channel, and they're decent enough. They're nice enough people, and they got absolutely slammed. They got criticized almost as much as the president did for seemingly nothing. If you don't like their candidate, fine, but they didn't deserve the barrage of abuse they got from several corners of especially the internet. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, so okay, there's a few things to tackle there. Look, I don't like, okay, I'm kind of, and this is why I like kind of massively draw a difference between myself and the more kind of liberals of the world. I don't care about some of this, the funny or like, offhand or like out of place kind of wannabe comedy routine that was the Trump presidency for 4 years. Like, I don't like, there was one tweet that like always is the like perfect example, where he tweeted out, it was a little more than a year ago, I think. So what it was, where he tweeted out, I promise I won't do this, and addressed it towards Greenland, and it was just a Photoshop picture of Trump Tower in the middle of Green. Like, I'm sorry, it was fucking hilarious. Like that, like he was funny. There was elements of Trump that were funny. He was a funny guy. I didn't like. Look, it's. I know that I've said it and stuff like that, and that we've both said it, and I don't care what color Trump's skin is. You know, it was a ridiculous shade of orange, but I don't really kind of care about that. Like, I care about the policies in the same sort of a way that, you know, I didn't like or support Bernie because, you know, he's 160 years old. His head is in the center of his chest and he hasn't effectively used a comb in a decade. I didn't like him because of how he looked or how he acted or the fact that he, you know, his arms would go fucking mental when he was talking about something. Yeah, I don't like. I didn't care about that. I liked Bernie because of his policies, and I disliked Trump because of his policies. That's why I disliked Trump. There was a few things that you said there. Sorry, there was one other thing. I didn't like. One of my favorite comedians, Jim Jeffries, he went on to the Bill Maher show. It was quite early in Trump's presidency, and he was on with Piers Morgan. And, you know, yeah, he called Trump Hitler. And look, I don't like that. I don't like the whole, you know, he's always Hitler. You had mentioned that he was, or that like someone else had called him Stalin or something like that.
And Green Mussolini was another one there.
Yeah, I really just don't like that. I don't get them. It's weird. You know, he's not as bad as them. But he did technically have death camps in the sense of the border camps that were on the camps that were on the border, in the sense that a lot of fucking people died in those camps. So
yes, that one did come up to it. You know, the idea that, you know, that was the whole kids in cages scandal and things like that. This is worth investigating because you'd think that Trump was the one who built them the way it was presented, that Trump had built these camps on the
which obviously he did.
Border.
Yeah, he did.
Of course. But the segregation of men, women, and children in those camps, those facilities, compounds, whatever I'm supposed to call them, that's standard practice. And it's been standard practice for decades, because if they come without papers, you need to obviously vet them for diseases and things like that, and obviously gynecologists, pediatricians have to go to separate areas. It also reduces the risk of violence and other like sexual assault and things like that. So the separation of children from their mothers sounds callous, but it's actually been done there for quite some time. But they tried to pin it on President Trump, and it's like, well, that's slightly overstating the case a bit. Yes, he's ultimately responsible because he's the commander-in-chief, but he hasn't written a special order to break up families of brown people. That was how it was.
Yeah, he did.
That was how it.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, did he?
It was the zero tolerance policy that Jeff Sessions wrote in. It was only about six months before the whole kind of scandal around the fact that he was separate. So essentially what the zero tolerance policy did, it was like, rather than catch and release, it was catch and imprison. You just stopped everybody who was coming through the border. It didn't matter why they were going. It didn't matter if they were like a refugee. It didn't matter if they were an asylum seeker. It did not matter. They were taken and they were put in the camps. So I will 100% agree with you. I'm not one of those fucking libtards who will say that, although that like Trump built the case. No, they were built under Obama. Were they built under Obama, or were they built
under Bill Clinton? I think
they were built under Bill Clinton.
Clinton administration.
But there was that.
I'll have to look that one up. But
there was one very, very like famous photo that was circulated. It was circulated like during Trump's presidency, but it was actually taken during the Obama presidency. So, oh fuck, you're gone, or you're frozen, or something. Jesus Christ. Well, look, we only have about 15 minutes left. So that's not an invitation to leave. Obviously, not saying that. There's still much to kind of discuss here, but this probably should only be the last time that this will happen. Oh, he's gone entirely. Probably just refreshing the page. So, there we go.
Hello again.
Really need to get that Ethernet cable. What was the last thing that you heard me saying? Sorry.
I don't. You sort of broke up. I mentioned something about the zero tolerance approach put through by Jeff Sessions for the zero tolerance offences. And because I claimed that Donald Trump wasn't breaking up families, you said he was because of the zero tolerance policy of that was put forward by Jeff Sessions. I've got an announcement here from 2018, which I'm now looking through because obviously if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and I'm going to just tell you that. And let me just have a look here.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Yeah, so I mean, Bob, no, carry on if you've got a point to make.
Yeah, it was just kind of, as I was saying, and I'll say, like, I'm not one of the libtards who, you know, said during Trump's presidency, you know, that like infamous photo that was kind of circulated, it went viral, and it was like, oh, you know, that like this is what Trump is doing, but it turns out that it was actually taken during the Obama presidency and not during Trump's presidency. So, yeah, you know, but like, I'm not one of those like people. Basically, like what I'm saying is like I don't think that it is like unique or that Trump is the start, middle, and end of all of this whole thing about putting kids in cages. Like, yeah, it's been happening for decades. I don't think it should have been happening for decades. Look, obviously there should be some sort of like a vetting process, as you had said. I don't think that we should just be letting just like absolutely everybody in, but you know, like as they're coming across, just like, yep, okay, you know, and you know, Texas is over here, like that sort of thing. There should obviously be like, you know, a process where, you know, you find out if they have, you know, certain illnesses, certain whatever, you find out why they're there, you find out what their purpose for going there. I'm perfectly okay with all of that. But yeah, I just don't, I just don't, I kind of lost the end of that point there. I'm not going to lie. Sorry.
That's all right. No, but I think as well, there was a conflation, I think, from a lot of critics of Trump, anti-Trump critics, a conflation of economic nationalism with ethno-nationalism. I think that, which is obviously not the same thing. One is one you can defend. The other one is just racist evil, which I think we agree on that one. I as someone who has lived in an ethno state for 3.5 years and has visited several others, I can assure you, it ain't much fun and it's kind of boring. And if you know, it's well, I mean, every country in the Middle East is effectively an ethno state, apart from Israel. But that's a different conversation. You know, Japan's an ethno state. It's the cultural stagnation and things like that. But economic nationalism makes a lot of sense to me. I can understand why people would sign up for it. Because you know, you can't complain about jobs disappearing overseas and not believe in economic nationalism on some level. So, but that's a different one. But you know, the constant, you know, what was it? What was I going to say? I've lost my point as well. It's too late. It's too late in the evening. That's what it is. The constant insistence that Trump was some sort of evil, like closet neo-Nazi, which made no sense. You know.
I think there's an argument for it, but
no, I don't. As someone who has made it his life's mission to try to understand the rise and fall of that German period, because I don't really want that to come back. I don't see he's very much an authoritarian. I could see that. He's very much a commanding presence. He was used to walking into a room and telling people what to do, but that doesn't make him, you know, the new Austrian corporal. I don't buy that at all.
Well, you know, I mean, we've both just kind of said that, yeah, that like, you know, there was a dictatorial element towards him. And I mean, he's undoubtedly racist. So like, maybe not like absolutely like full on, like as Leo has just said, yeah, like maybe not a neo-Nazi, but a white nationalist. Absolutely. I think that point is very easily defendable.
At the risk of sounding like the dunce, because let's face it, I will do in this conversation. What makes you think? I mean, what is your example that you would present to someone who said Trump is not a white nationalist, and you go, "Yes, he is," because what have you got that I've missed? In all seriousness,
well, I mean, you know, there was the discriminatory housing practices that he and his father engaged in that despite a court order demanding that he like stop discriminating based on race, that he broke several times. I think it was 2 or 3 times that he broke that court order. there was reports from staff in Mar-a-Lago where if they heard that Trump was coming, that they were instructed to clear the black folks from the floor. There's just a lot of like really like suspect that even on their own would be maybe, you know, not the greatest of examples. But yeah, when you kind of compile those two things together, I'm not going after going after him for something. His father, it wasn't his father, it was him and his father, and Trump continued to do it, I think, up until the 90s. But
can everyone in the chat still hear me? Please say yes.
Yeah, I can. Chat has been able to hear you. Are you able to hear me? Kendon, are you able to hear me? Okay, so Kendon's not able to hear me, but I can hear him, and chat can hear him. So where can I post that? Oh no, he's fucking gone again. Nate Hammer says Trump was 25. Yeah, but dude, as I've said to you, he was doing that up until the 90s. So like he wasn't 25 in the 90s. So like I don't really know kind of like what's causing the block here. Muted myself now. There we go. That should hopefully be the last time. Should hopefully.
I have to laugh or else I'd cry. Yes, Kendon does indeed need an internet cable, or he needs to just buy a more powerful computer with a stronger modem built in. No, you're right. It is actually me that's dying. It's entirely my fault. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Mar-a-Lago. I know nothing about this. Discriminating housing policies, breaking rules. I know nothing about this. I have a lot of followers who are Black and Asian Trump supporters and Orthodox Jewish Trump supporters who are passionately defending not only Trump, but Make America Great Again and other such things. And, you know, either they're blind to this or something's being misrepresented, or they're all shills of some kind. So there's something is going missing here. And this, do you know what? I'm actually going to make this my little private mission. I'm going to find out what all this is about, because I want to know. Because again,
I was just going to say that one of the kind of phrases that I sometimes say on my channel is, "Don't take my word for it." You know what I mean? I'm giving you my understanding of what is of what has happened or of what has transpired, but yeah, like, don't take my word for it. You know, go out and research this yourself. I'm not expecting you to like hear me saying this and then you just take it as gospel. Like that would be like, I would almost criticize you for doing that. But this whole thing about, you know, that like there's like Black and Asian Americans who are supporters of Trump. I find that kind of like not only a little bit id-poly, but also like people can hold conflicting views. So there are women who are staunchly anti-feminist. There was, even during the, you know, mid 40s in Germany, because, you know, it's a YouTube algorithm, not very, you know, doesn't take it very likely when you say that. We all know what I'm talking about. There was Jewish Nazis. There was like, there's like, people can hold conflicting views, like, and they do it all the time. Candace Owens is like, hates Black people. I'm sorry. I know that a lot of people don't like it when I say that. She fucking does. There's just, people hold conflicting views all the time. And I'm not necessarily blaming, you know, any of the people who are in your community who are Black or Asian, who do follow Trump, or who do, you know, like Trump, or who have voted for him or anything. Yeah. I'm not necessarily saying that like they're holding a conflicting view. You know, like some of this stuff is just not that well known, because even though, you know, the likes of CNN, MSNBC on down, who I don't fucking watch. I hate the fucking mainstream media. They're awful.
Me too.
they don't talk about this stuff. You know, they talked about the mean tweets. They talked about, oh, look at his orange face and look at his hair when he was facing the wind and it went all up and did. Like that's the stuff that they talk about. That, you know, they don't like the fact that Trump was mean in a tweet, and that's what they'll talk about for 2 fucking hours. But they won't talk about the stuff that actually matters, like the stuff that I've just said. Like, it's really, really, really weird that Trump was president for 4 years and not an awful lot of people know about the stuff that I said, the housing practices,
the Mar-a-Lago, the lack of brown people in the Mar-a-Lago, things like that. No, this is stuff that I really want to hear. But I mean, I'm curious actually, because I mean, this is something that Leo Filius has jumped in with it earlier up in the chat, and you've mentioned it as well. Bran Says has just come in here with his. I'd like to hear the arguments of how Candace Owens hates black people, and Leo Filius reckons that she's a white nationalist, even though she clearly isn't pink. So, you know, that to me, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not, look, if that's your position, you're entitled to have it. But I mean, it's that's a very strange position to hold, if I may be bold. I don't see what an intelligent, educated woman as Candace Owens is, whatever you think of her politics, why she would be a white nationalist, given the fact that she could never join that tribe. You know, I don't see how that doesn't make sense to me, if I'm being brutally honest. That's
well, okay, so just a tiny, just micro pushback, just because I despise Candace Owens. You know, when she was on Joe Rogan, she said that she doesn't believe in climate change at all. So I would kind of push back just slightly on the whole educated part there. But that's a minor, and I get that's a petty point. The idea that Candace Owens is, you know, like hates black people or anything else like that, she has made it like her literal career. This is how she makes money, by going around and, you know, pouting 1350 and not explaining how to actually solve it, which, by the way, anybody who has done even like 6 months of sociology knows how to solve the issue of 1350.
But, you know, right murder rate, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. She'll do that. You know, she'll talk about the fact that, like, it's the Democratic plantation. Like, okay, which party has done more for Black lives and for Black rights? Is it the Republicans or is it the Democrats? No, I hate both. I hate the Democrats a little bit, you know, less, and I agree with them more. But the Republicans have definitely, and especially historically, not been particularly kind to black folks. So the fact that she's kind of saying that, no, that you're better off being a Republican if you're black and not a Democrat, that's just really, really weird to me. There's a lot of things that I cannot think of off the top of my head. I mean, if I kind of knew that this was going to come up, I would have had like a few.
No. It's unfair to drop it in the last few minutes.
No, and that's fine. I don't necessarily mind it. It's like those things just off the top of my head. Yeah, Look, I don't necessarily think like it wouldn't be the hill that I would die on. It's kind of almost exactly what I said for Trump. It's like any one of these things doesn't necessarily point to, so, you know, Trump's housing discrimination doesn't put the nail in the coffin of Trump is racist, but it's a bit weird. Like, it's a bit weird that he did that. It's a bit suspect, right? It's a little bit on the.
If there is any truth to the, I mean, if there, and I assume that there is some. If there is any truth to the allegations that of discriminating housing policies and obviously the Mar-a-Lago staffing suggestion, then obviously that is very much a red flag, and I'm not going to pretend it isn't. But unfortunately, I haven't got a clue what either of these things are, so I can't really counter it. So I just have to sit here and go, okay, that seems like a thing. I'll have a look into that and come back with my two penneth if it's worth anything, which probably isn't. But there we are. But I still don't get how Candace Owens is a white nationalist. I mean, it's not in her interest to be. If you're going to play color politics, if you're going to play blood and color politics, which I refuse to do for the most part because it only ends badly. It's like, I don't know. I mean, it would be as absurd as me becoming a black nationalist. You know, I wouldn't personally benefit from that kind of sort of ethno-nationalist, dare I say, far right mentality because it's not my ethnic group. So I don't understand how. And again, this is where Leo Filius could like drop something in the comment section for me to read, or point me out to a book or something.
Yeah, this is something that
it's far too big. It's far too big.
Has just kind of come to me, and I know that we're running kind of dangerously close to the end of the time here. You know, the case with George Floyd, and then with the investigation into Breonna Taylor, like Candace Owens came out and said that, like, you know, the whole Breonna Taylor incident, that you know that like there was like issues there, and some of that was her fault, and you know that, like, you know, licking the boots of the cops in that situation, which, you know, is a little bit weird considering that Breonna Taylor literally did nothing wrong. She wasn't in her bed when they shot her. That's something that a lot of people say. She was in bed, but the banging on the door, she got up and she was standing in the hallway.
Yeah.
But the whole George Floyd thing, like, I mean, she didn't necessarily go so far as to outwardly defend Derek Chauvin in that case. But, you know, she constantly made reference to the fact that, oh, well, you know, like that, like he was high on fentanyl and he had some counterfeit bill. Okay, does that mean that he deserves to die? I don't really think that anybody in their right mind would say yes to that question. But if the answer is almost automatically, you know, no to the question of does that mean that he deserves to die, then why bring it up? Why bring it up? Because we're like, none of us are saying that George Floyd was absolutely perfect. Nobody is saying that. Absolutely nobody is saying that. It's just the way in which he died was unnecessary and was like a case of police brutality and like all of those things that we can agree on. But it's the lens that you're showing your critique through that is, again, it's like all of these individual things is not enough to, you know, prove the case, but add them together and at minimum it's very suspect. And that's my kind of point. That's what's leading me to.
Yeah, I mean, I would just take issue with the idea that Candace Owens hates black folk, and I think she said. I mean, I don't agree with everything that she says. I wouldn't say I'm a passionate supporter of Candace Owens because I don't know her very well. But I don't, and I also don't like the accusation of white nationalist because that doesn't make sense to me. That's not just conflicting. That's just psychotic. You know, it doesn't make any sense for her to be that. But, you know, I think the point about the fentanyl in Mr. Floyd's system, I mean, I watched the 10-minute footage and I was weeping by the end of it.
Yeah, it was harrowing.
It was horrific, even for someone who's a filthy right winger like me or casual right winger like me. It's a horrible 10 minutes. So I sat through the whole thing because I wanted to see the uncut footage. But I think the point about the fentanyl is that the argument was made at one point that it wasn't that he passed out because of the knee, and it wasn't the knee that killed him. It was that plus the fentanyl in his system and something, other bits and pieces like that. I think that was the argument that was made. Although, to be quite honest, it's detail at that point because a man still died. And it also is not a sanctioned restraint. That's the ultimate point, isn't it? It's like that's not how you subdue, and secure a suspect. That's just not what you do. So yeah, there's no excuse for that. So I mean I mean it's a shame that we did that like right at the end, really, because I mean,
I was just going to say, because there is definitely a wider conversation there.
Part two. No, I mean, look, I mean, in all honesty, Stephen, I thank you very much for your invitation. It has been a pleasant evening.
It definitely has.
Despite the fact that, you know, my computer has died 4 or 5 times, and I do apologise for that. Apologise for everybody watching, assuming that there are still people watching. They haven't all just buggered off and done something else. But I mean, I'd like to do this again because this was fun. No, I enjoyed it.
No, definitely, man. Definitely. I saw Mathpig was in the live chat a little while ago. I haven't actually seen him very recently.
He has disappeared.
Yeah. Mathpig regularly has people like on his show that he will just that he would just interview, for want of a better word, right? He'll, you know, sit down and talk, and there's always like Mathpig is there. What was it? Yeah, that, and there's like an after show there then where, you know, like a few more people will kind of like jump on and cross-examine almost, or just kind of have a conversation about like the wider issues and stuff like that. If you know, I can put you in contact with Mathpig if you would want to. Obviously, if like Mathpig is okay with it as well.
Let's have a chat. Let's see what we can arrange. I mean, I can't. Mathpig says I talk shit with crazy folk. I don't know whether I should be.
And by crazy folk, he means 90% of the time me. So,
well, you are a socialist, darling. You know, there's a. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, but even just kind of failing that, I would love to talk to you again, man. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. You know, the last couple of videos that I've done, which have kind of involved me kind of like crossing swords almost with a different different person, or you know, even the debate on politics that I did on MDD recently, which you had said that you had seen at least part of.
Yeah,
they've all been, you know, pretty heated in their temperatures, and this was a wonderful break from tradition almost. So
but you know why that is, I think, because I know Leo Filius from your debate with the two capitalists, because I think a lot of the time when it comes to politics, it's all ego. That's where it comes into it. It's all I'm right, you're wrong, shut up, which is where I fall out with a lot of, and I pick on them because they're the ones I argue with. I fall out with a lot of leftists, a lot of people who are on the far left. It's all we're right, you're wrong, shut up. You're not allowed to disagree. They take it personally if you question their principles, because principles are prejudice. Principles are prejudice. It's how we see our worldview is not the world. It's just how we see the problem. So if you can park your ego to one side and say, this is what I've got, what do you think? And they bring what they've got to the table. You can have a mature and open conversation and have a laugh and drink some beer and swear at the computer because it's died. And you can actually engage in something constructive that benefits all parties, as opposed to just, which is all I get now. It's why I don't go on Twitter. I don't go on Twitter anymore. I'm not interested. It's just awful, because it's just a wall of hate all the way down. It's like there's no exchange. You know, this has been fun because I'm talking to somebody when he doesn't disappear because my computer's rubbish. TikTok's okay because I get duets and stitches and comments and things. I'm just I want more this stuff. I'll talk to anybody. I'll shake hands with the devil if he gives me a smile. You know, just get more. So if you want to do this again and you are happy to have me on your Cider and Port channel, then I would cheerfully come back. Eventually, I will have my own YouTube channel where I get to talk into a microphone about things that concern me, and I might invite you on there. So, do it mutually. But yeah, I mean, because it's now 6 minutes. Well, we've had 2 hours and 7 minutes, call it.
Yeah.
So we solved nothing. We agreed on almost nothing. But it was still productive, and that's a good thing. So I feel better. I feel refreshed and cleansed for having spoken to you about these issues. Mathpig says yes, come to the pigsty. Okay, so right. Well, if you could do me a solid, Stephen, and ping me details so I could communicate with Mathpig. He says on Twitter, but I'm not on Twitter because I refuse to acknowledge Twitter's existence. If you could just and
I can teach you better production than Cider and Port. Like Mathpig, that's just unnecessary, It's just
that is
we josh each other all the time. Mathpig, if you're comfortable putting your email in the live chat, and we can kind of take it from there.
How do I add a thing in the chat? That would be nice, wouldn't it? If I actually knew what I was doing. How do I should be able to comment, shouldn't I? I have that right, surely, as one of the guests on your program. I should be able to just type things in.
Yeah, I think that StreamYard, for some reason, only allows me to comment, which is very unusual, I realize. But I think it's literally just because you're signed in as like a guest, you haven't got your YouTube linked to StreamYard, so it wouldn't be...
Well, I mean, if you want to, I mean, seriously, I can see Mathpig's got a YouTube channel. If you just want to send him my email address, because you've got my Yahoo email, business. So just send it if you can.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
I don't mind that. But yeah, we'll have a chat. I've run out of ideas. How do you normally sign off one of these things? Do you make obscene gestures? Do you swear at the opponent?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. Yeah. Look, just once again, thank you to everybody who came for the in the.
Yes, thank you very much.
Obviously,
putting it up with all.
Obviously, thank you to Kendon for coming on. It was again, I can't understate how much of a very nice chat and very nice conversation, more so than a debate that it was. But Soldier, I will address that in a moment. Did anyone see Nephilim Free and Dark Talking streams? Did
anyone see the last Nehil Free and Darth Dawkins stream? Darth Dawkins?
You haven't heard of Darth Dawkins?
No. This is an entire subculture about which I know nothing. Who is Darth Dawkins? What is a Darth Dawkins?
I'll explain it to you. It'll only take me a minute after I end the broadcast. I'll explain it to you. Then.
Oh, is there an after party? Oh, that's nice. I feel like a celebrity.
There will be on MathPig's channel. I don't typically do after parties. Just thank you to absolutely everybody. Like, sub, all that YouTuber bollocks, and we shall talk to you
subscribe for his socialist content, and head over to TikTok for @Kendon Fahr for common sense content. Let's see what I did there. Okay. Yeah, I'm on TikTok as @Kendon Fahr. If you fancy following me and my random 60-second videos, feel free. Hit like and subscribe for your man, Stephen Ryan. Why am I plugging your channel? That's your job. That's fine. I'll just shut up now. It's not waffling.
I leave your TikTok in the description. Jesus, I couldn't think of the name there for a second. So until Saturday, I have no idea what I'm going to be streaming about on Saturday, but I'm sure I'll find I'm sure I'll find a thing. MathPig says that he doesn't do kiddie TikTok. It's not just kids on there anymore, you know.
No, it really isn't. No, it really isn't.
It's really not. It's really not.
Conservatives are getting binned because it doesn't like us very much. No, MathPig, it's TikTok's for everyone. It's a fun platform for making 60-second videos about issues and women in their under things dancing around a bit. There seems to be an awful lot of that.
Anyway, yes, again, I have no idea what I'm going to do on Saturday, but I'm sure I will think of something. And until then, we shall